So I've never actually pulled the trigger on a nicer hand grinder, but like most things, you get what you pay for. So my last hand grinder broke pretty bad. It couldn't hold its grind setting anymore, and the shaft, which kept it in line, messed up, so my grinds are super uneven. But I held off for a long time because I had an electric grinder at my disposal. But now it was time to get a new one. So now is where we land on the 1Zpresso JX. Now, getting into the world of grinders and hand grinders can get pretty complicated pretty quick. It seems easy, go buy a grinder, that's it, be done with it. But they all have their little bit of nuances and things each one does a little bit better than the other. Now, behind a good quality water, I think a great grinder is gonna be the next best thing in order to get a great cup of coffee, and something often overlooked. So I've been using this grinder for about 3 months now, and I've made all different types of coffee with it: espressos, pour overs, AeroPress, French press, and I'm gonna talk through some of my findings. But if you're looking for something pretty quick, in a nutshell, it's a fantastic grinder with amazing build quality. The grinds are really great. It's an amazing grind experience, and it's a really versatile grinder, and I would pick one up if you're considering it. But if you're like me and you love details, continue on. So I'm gonna start here with the build quality. This is gonna be the first thing you notice whenever you get this thing out of the box. Now, package came in and I noticed it was quite heavy, something that was different from the last couple of hand grinders I bought. So the grinder is nice and heavy, feels great, which can be a pro or con, which I'll get into a little bit later. But it's an all metal build. The only thing plastic is actually the cap here, and even then it's still a great plastic. I actually had a pretty ugly drop on the concrete with it not too long ago, and it held up just fine. It feels like something that I would be getting from Apple. So it has this nice wood premium feeling handle as well, spins real nice. It has this rubber grip that goes all the way around with, unfortunately, their logo real big on it, but that's not too big of a deal breaker. And then an all metal catch pin, which screws in. Which now gets into the use of the grinder. So it does use a click system. Now you'll go ahead and open up the grinds bin, and on the bottom you'll find where you can go ahead and click it to change your grind settings. It does come with a card in the package that you can scan and give you some recommended settings. I would hold on to it if possible and make note of them, because it's kind of hard to find it after you throw it away like I did. Now, it has 30 clicks per rotation, which is a pretty fine adjustments to be able to dial in your coffee for whatever you might need. Every bean is different. And so if I'm switching grind settings, I like to just start all the way back to 0 and then do my rotations after that to get my setting where it needs to be. Now to use it, you'll go ahead and load the coffee into the top. You'll take off the handle and then put the coffee in. It holds about 35 grams of coffee or so. So good enough for most brews that you're gonna need. If you're gonna do larger brews, bigger French press, stuff like that, you'll just grind twice, but I wouldn't let that be an issue because that gets into the next benefit of this. This is a fast grinder. Now, whenever I ground my first cup, whenever I bought it, I actually thought I messed up the grind settings because it grounds so fast. I was used to the other hand grinders where I was there forever, felt like I was getting a workout, but I just stuck through it anyways and did it. This one, as soon as I started grinding, that's where the experience really started to show itself. And the grind happened really fast. I'm not waiting around forever. It was easy to grind, and more so even with French press when you're doing bigger batches of 60, 70 grams. And it only takes a few seconds to grind and everything tastes great. Now the reason why it's so fast is because it has a 48mm stainless steel conical burst set. Now there was some slight annoyances. Now one thing I noticed whenever I'm using this on a daily basis, if I hold it a certain way, it feels like the grind bin is kind of getting loose when it screws in. Now I've never actually had it fall out. There has only been one time where I've noticed that it's getting kind of loose. Other than that, I usually just leave it alone and I don't have any issues making my cup of coffee. One other little annoyance, which isn't really a big deal when it comes to hand grinders, is the static. Now there is a technique that you can do to spray with some water, which goes with every grinder actually, to eliminate kind of the static that happens on a burr or on a grinder. Usually if you're using this every day, you're kind of just replacing those little bit of beans that kind of get stuck there, and it's really not much of a big deal, but if you kind of knock it around, it can get a little messy. But it does come with a brush to go ahead and clean it, which it's a really nice high quality brush, and I use it usually about once a week just to clean everything out. But you certainly don't have to if you don't want to. I just do, just to make sure my equipment is going to last as long as it can. So I have used it to do, like I said, a French press. I mostly use it to make an AeroPress coffee, which is my recipe that I normally use. It's ground fairly fine, like a medium fine. And then I also used it to pull some shots of espresso, and that was also a pleasant experience as well. Now, dialing in the coffee was pretty easy. I got it like on the second try, pulled a pretty nice shot, and it tasted really good. Now, if you are going to be doing more espresso than I do, at least at the current moment, I'll be doing more espresso later on when I get my machine back at my place. There is a 1-up version of this one called the JX Pro. That one allows you to do more fine tuning for espresso, but I stuck with this one because I'm not always doing espresso. I'm pretty broad on the types of coffee I'm brewing day to day, and for the most part, I'm doing an AeroPress. It's just a little bit more convenient with what I have and kind of my day to day. But when I get my espresso machine back, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be doing more espresso, which I'm perfectly happy to do in this one. So I already got that bean dialed in, and it's great. And so this was an immediate difference, night and day, from some other ones I had bought in the past compared to this new one, which then leads me into taste. Now, if you're coming from some cheaper hand grinders or just grinder in general, or even buying pre-ground coffee, this is gonna be a big step up. I think this is where your coffee experience will really start to change. Now, not all burr sets and grinders are made equal. Each of them produce their own taste. Now, this one tends to have a little bit more clarity. I still find some sweetness inside the cup with my coffee, but it also tends to be a pretty clear cup, which is not a bad thing. It all depends on your preference, and so far I've been liking it. Now, 1Zpresso is, I guess, a pretty new company when it comes to the grinder scene. They've been doing some really great stuff, and they have a range of grinders. This one's kind of sliding right in the middle, and then it's not gonna have all the bells and whistles and some of the more expensive ones, and we can get up to like $300. But I think this is a really great one to look at if you're brewing all different kinds of coffee. They do have one that's a little bit cheaper called the Q2, which would be perfect if you're doing more filter coffees and AeroPresses and stuff and not doing any espresso. Then you can save your money and get that one. Now, why would you even get a hand grinder? Well, one, I personally love hand grinders because they don't take up a lot of space. You can travel with them, which I do very often. Whenever I travel, the grinder comes with me. I take my own coffee. And third, a lot more of their budget can go into the quality of the grinder itself and the burrs, which is the most important part, compared to also having to put in all the electric motors and everything inside of a electric grinder. Now, there are probably a couple of grinders, I think, in this price range electric that you can get that are also great. But I think this is a great place to start, especially if you like to keep your setup nice and light and tidy. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, this is a really great recommendation, and if you're kind of on the fence about which grinder to get, this is one I would definitely look at, and I can highly recommend to anyone trying to get a really good hand grinder or get into the grinders. All right, that's gonna be it. Now, if you don't mind me, I'm gonna go make another cup of coffee because it's around midday and I like to have another cup of coffee. Enjoy your coffee. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so here is a hand grinder. Now, this is from, what are your first impressions?
I love the build of it. That's the first thing that stands out. Is it kind of like a AeroPress?
No, this is just a grinder.
Oh, I just sound like an idiot. Just a few or all of them?
All of them.
Where are the beans from?
That's our blend.
Oh, gotcha. Now I guess I put the top back on.
Mm-hmm. Start grinding.
Okay. There it is.
There you go, and you're done.
Oh. Ah, it smells so good.